we'll do this. We'll make it as easy as possible because this
Okay.
is mostly wonky stuff.
All right. And Stream Deck is not working, so
Okay. So
um,
we're just
I'll
doing
add
this.
that stuff later. Yeah,
All
we don't
right.
have bumpers today.
All right. That's fine. Okay. All right. So we'll just say it and then hope for the best.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me
That's fine.
make sure we're showing Twitch. I have so many windows open.
I'm sure you
It's
do.
like comical.
Well,
I
I
get
just
like
got
2 or 3 emails for everything I have to do throughout the day. And all right. It's like comical. 1, 2, 3.
well, I just got
2 or 3. Okay, we are both hearable on the stream.
good.
And
All right.
one of my new coworkers asked me to send him the link. He's also a podcaster.
Okay, good.
One new viewer, yay! Or
Yay.
listener, or something. I don't know when.
Whatever.
Listen. Whatever.
All right. So I'll give a countdown. Take a deep
Okay.
breath. On 3, 2, 1.
I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections quite candidly goes up as the voting populace goes down. Paul Rarick.
Bad officials are elected by good citizens who do not vote. George Jean Nathan.
Somewhere inside all of us is the power to change the world. Roald Dahl.
Democracy is not a spectator sport. Miriam Wright Elderman. It's time to talk about voting.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast to reclaim faith in the context of political discussion. I'm September, and you can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12. And you can hear me on the Geek Grills podcast. Heresy and Hearsay is a Patreon site that you can find at patreon.com/Heresy and Hearsay. If you visit there and help support us, it goes a long, long way. Just $2 a month can help us keep making this humble show. You can also contribute with bits in Twitch or subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime. Bezos doesn't need that money. And with me, the man with the word about the word, Reverend Barney.
Salutations, true believers. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can also follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe to us. Also, give us a review. That helps others find us. We also have a new and improved website that you can listen to our past shows, as well as find bios on each of us. Just look for heresyandhearsay.com. Sorry. So today, we're going to be talking about voting. I think this has become like a yearly thing that we do, and I'm okay with that. To go over some of this stuff to remind people about voting, because it's as Hal Sparks once said. I know a lot of great liberals that vote on every other election, so I think it's important to remind, especially those in our side of the woods, that we need to vote on every election. And this one, I think, is extremely important. Um, Before we do that, let's do some house cleaning first. September has a new post. Would you like to tell us who you're working for and what you're doing with that new organization?
Okay, well, I am working for the North Carolina Democratic Party, a coordinated campaign to elect Biden, Harris, and every Democrat down the ballot. So I have a specific turf over here in North Iredell County, also including parts of Forsyth and Davie counties, trying to elect David Parker, Dan Bessie, Cal Cunningham, of course, Sherry Beasley, and, Biden and Kamala. So this is boots on the ground, field organizing, recruiting volunteers, making calls, getting them to make calls and texts, and coordinating basically your local party with the state party to turn North Carolina blue.
And I'm glad that I'm sure that they're glad that they have someone like you who is as seasoned a pro as you are at this kind of work. And I hope that this pays off for all of us. We've got some really good candidates this year, especially in the state elections. And I think we have a really good chance of turning not only the state blue as far as the governorship and getting Tom Tillis out of office because he should have never been elected, but also getting some of our Democratic House seats back, as well as possibly turning the state house blue. I think we've got a real good shot at this with
Yeah, this
everything that's
is
been going.
really important in North Carolina right now. Turning the state blue is what could win the election nationally, but also there's a lot at stake locally. Like you mentioned, Tom Tillis, that's one of our closer races, but we actually have a good chance to turn over a lot of state legislator seats, and being a census year, super super important because we want to be able to, well, we want to be able, ultimately the progressives, to make it a nonpartisan thing entirely to draw our districts, but at least putting it in the hands of Democrats and the legislature in the hands of Democrats gives us a chance at that, and at just redoing the districts so they're not racially gerrymandered as we have run into in North Carolina a lot recently. So yeah, focusing the way we are in these calls, I mean, that's at stake. And as I pointed out to a local county party in a meeting tonight, I worked in Iredell in '08. And even though it's like super Republican over here, and Iredell itself did not go for Obama, you look at the very, very small margin of how many, it was just a few thousand votes, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, that North Carolina itself went blue by in '08.
Right.
Around 1,100 of those was I looked up the difference at the time between the votes we got for Kerry in Iredell and the votes we got for Obama because of all the work we did calling everyone and registering people. There was like an 1,100 person difference. That's a
Right.
huge chunk of what took the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, even if it seems hopeless and you end up volunteering and you call a bunch of people who, we have a lot of people in North Carolina who they have just been for generations registering as Democrats, but some of them are like pre-Reagan Democrats and they're actually Republicans. But it's worth getting through those calls to get, you know, the true believers on the phone into the polls and to believe their vote matters.
Yeah.
I, in '08, registered an 83-year-old woman who hadn't voted since Nixon because she just didn't believe it counted. And it was people like that that helped us win.
Yeah, I mean, it was a narrow margin in '08. I mean, it took a couple extra days for because it was too close to call. It took a couple of days, but when it happened, we were blue, and I think I was the most. I think I actually wept tears of joy that time because as someone who has fought very hard, has lived in this state and has been part of political action committees and walked those streets myself as a field agent, as going door to door saying, "Hey, we need to get this person out of office. Hey, will you vote for the will you, support this candidate? Can you give us a little money to help support this candidate?" Stuff like that. It was disheartening in the '90s, especially because I was one of the political action committees I worked for was going against Jesse Helms, and I that man was the antithesis of everything I believed in, even back then. And I worked so hard to try to get him out of office, and we just A didn't have a strong candidate, but B it was Jesse Helms, and he was so entrenched. But when we turned the state blue for just that one time, it just made me so happy that the state could actually be seen as something better than just another southern state, you know. And we are better than just another southern state. We are better than and I hate to say it like that, but we're better than states like Alabama, who has still got the Confederate flag on their that are finally having to take the Confederate flag off of their state flag. We're better than that. as a state, there's a rich history of progressivism that can be in the state, but it's drowned out so much because of so much hate in the state as well. So to see that, it's a really big difference. So what that means show wise is I'm going to be solo for the next 7 to 8 weeks. I don't know if September will be able to join me for election night. She may be doing a virtual watch party to see. But for the next 7 to 8 weeks, I am going to be doing my best to basically be a closer. I'm going to pick a topic that Trump has discussed in his previous campaigns or in this current campaign, and I'm going to debunk what he has said that he has promised or that he is promising now. Now, that I may be preaching to converted as far as the show as a proper, but I hope that you, as our listeners, will share this with those people who may be on the fence, maybe, or you may feel that can be changed. Those people that you feel still have a soul left and can be changed, and can.
Daniel, you might actually, I would like to suggest that you also do keep some carrots in mind here.
I,
I'm already talking to voters, right?
yeah,
So some of what I'm hearing, because the first thing we ask is like, are you going to support, Biden and Kamala and all the rest of, the Democrats? And they're like, well, I don't know about all of them. I'm still doing my research. And it might be worth, especially just picking some of the key races, whether you talk about Cal a little bit, whether you talk about some of these, legislative districts,
right,
introduce our listeners to those races. Because I mean, if you've got people in Tillis's area, you've got people in Parker's area, and they want that information, it's one, less piece of research they have to do to feel like it's okay to keep checking blue, because the Democrats have a platform and we can hold all our candidates accountable to it, unlike
right.
the Republicans who just decide to not have a platform and play follow the leader.
I agree, and I was discussing how with a friend of mine how that you're going to be gone for the next several weeks, and she's like, "Oh, so in other words, your show is going to be angry for the next 7 weeks." I'm like, I'm like, well, I know September keeps me in check and make sure that I don't go off the rails and everything, and so yes, I will do my
Which is
best to keep.
really, I have to thank you, good for my mental health, because I it's not like I'm not a bitch all the time in real life, and just you're a great counterpoint to make me smile and try to find the bright side somewhere.
Because it's like she's like because she does keep you balanced. She keeps you from like going off on a rant that is like I understand, I get it, and I think we complement each other well. I think that's why we work well together, is because of that. So that's what's going. The show is going to be like. Is I'm going to try my best to be not ranty. I am going to try not to be angry. Now, there will be a show about religion. That's where I'll probably lose my cool a little because I do feel it's important to bring up that so that it is driven home how much he's manipulating those individuals who are believers. And so I may become fire and brimstone Reverend Barney on that one. But other than that, I am very going to try very hard to be very understanding and try to bring this as a argument to help people understand why he is not the best choice, and not so much in an emotional sense, not in a logical sense, but not in an angry sense, because they'll have to go to YouTube, but
Okay.
we'll also have it on our podcast. I will post it on YouTube first, and then September will be able to eventually, when she gets a minute, because she's going to be busy a lot, she'll pull the audio, or I'll do a direct audio and send it directly to her. Once I figure out how to crunch the audio down, and then she'll put it on as a podcast form as well on the website. So so that the podcast catchers will catch it. So we'll definitely get both of those set up. But yeah, it'll be YouTube first, and then and then a couple of days later we'll get the audio up for the podcast section. Because I don't have access, because this is her channel, I don't have access to Twitch, or I go live myself. But on election night, I may go
I could
live.
show you how.
We will see about that. But on election night, if you're busy, I still may go live on I do have a Twitch channel, because I have Twitch, so that means I have a Twitch channel technically. So I will figure out how to do picture in picture. That will be fun, and then try to figure out how to show the coverage of the election while also talking about the coverage as well, and go live on election night. But I do want to try to do something live on election night, and seeing our channel listing is less than 1,000 viewers, or less than 1,000 subscribers, I can't go live on YouTube. So they won't let us do that until we have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So, but we will.
So everybody, tell your friends.
Yes. But we will definitely work on that. So that is the housekeeping. We wanted to get that out of the way first. So let's talk about voting. First off, so did you hear about Trump saying that, telling North Carolina voters to vote twice?
Yeah, don't do that. That's illegal. That's a felony.
What is it, like 5 years plus a huge fine if you do that?
Yeah.
So the story is that Trump told his North Carolina voters to go ahead and do the mail-in ballots, and then to go into the polls, and if they can't prove that they've gotten your mail-in ballot, to go ahead and vote. And September, my understanding, we had this discussion earlier, but can you explain how, if you can check to see if they've gotten your ballot at your district, correct?
Well, actually,
No.
you will be able to later on. In the past, you've been able to just go look up your voter registration, Board of Elections, and see that you requested an absentee and see that it was returned. That's actually not in place right now, because I'm assuming it's because they were so overwhelmed. Like,
Right.
Rather than a couple thousand, we've got like a couple 100,000 absentee ballots in process right now. However, it is very safe and secure to go ahead and request your absentee online, get it in the mail it back, give the Board of Elections 10 days to get your ballot back to you. They do have a barcode on them. So if you go in to the Board of Elections during early vote or whatever, because, and tried that, they would able to scan, like when they go to get your ballot, they'll be like, no, already sent you an absentee. Or, if something went wrong, you could track it. But it's one of those, it will be counted. Don't do it twice. And there's something that's not online yet that you can find a link to at the State Board of Elections website called Ballot Tracks.
Right.
It's not live yet, but that will be able to help. You'll be able to see where it's the new system they're putting in place, so you can see where in process your ballot is. But like at this exact moment, and these ballots only started going out on Friday, you can't see where in the process or verify that your request was received. Like, I know mine was received because I walked in my Board of Elections and I filled out the application right there. So I'm just waiting for my ballot right now. But on election day, having been a precinct judge, the people who are running the elections at your precinct, they get a list in the morning of everyone from their precinct who voted absentee already, and they have to post a public notice of that. So that's public information. That's not like, oh, they're not going to count it and you'll never know. That is public information that is easily accessible as soon as the election starts. Does that
And
make
that,
sense?
yeah, it does. So that's basically a list on the door or something to that effect that you can see when you walk to your precinct. You can look and it's like, oh, there's my ballot. It's been there. And you can turn around and walk out if you are that
Mm-hmm.
concerned about it getting. So yeah, that they so and at least in the state of North Carolina, that's the case. Now my next question is about North Carolina because I know we're getting wonky on this, but on North Carolina, do you have to have you have to have a witness, but you have to have a notary public?
No, you do
Okay.
not have to have a notary public. You have to have one witness. It used to be two. You don't need a witness at all for the absentee ballot request anymore. But to send your ballot back in, you do need a witness. They need to see you mark your ballot, but they don't need to see how. And they sign the outside of the form. There are a few requirements for who that witness can be, but it's nowhere near as restrictive as it used to be. It does not have to be a notary public. It can be anyone over the age of 18, with the exception of a candidate, or like if you're in an assisted living facility, for instance, the staff cannot do that. So that's it.
Right.
Those are like the only people that cannot be a witness. But other than those two things, anyone over the age of 18 can witness for you.
So that may be something that, and we'll be talking about a little bit about helping out. That may be something that for those individuals who are more able bodied and able to help those who are elderly and who are healthy and do the social distancing, all that kind of stuff, to help those individuals in your neighborhood that may be elderly and needs some that doesn't have anybody that can be their witness for them. You can offer that for those individuals to say, hey, look, if you're wanting to vote, I'll be more than happy at a social distance to be your witness and sign it for you. If you're over the age of 18 and you're legal to vote, then yeah, offer that. And I think that's important, a public service that you can do for those individuals in your area. Um, and it's also a very neighborly thing to do. So I think it does a couple of things. It does the civic thing, but it also does the neighborly thing. I think that is something that you can consider. Again, practicing social distancing, mask wearing, the whole 9 yards, because we're still in the middle of a pandemic, even if most people don't believe it right now.
Yeah, the state party organization and the national campaign are not doing anything in person. Um, my, my son has texted me weird things. We're not doing any kind of door to door in person thing. The closest thing to it is going to be like porch drop off if you can only use a paper list for calls.
Right.
So if you wanted to engage in some service like that, offering witnessing for ballots, I would contact your local Democratic county party. They are the most likely organization, in my opinion, to have a list of shut-ins and people who need voter assistance, and they'd be able to steer you that way. And you know what? Go on, use an app like Nextdoor.
Right.
I don't use Nextdoor, but I know a lot of people do for little neighborhood organization stuff. Go on Nextdoor and it'll localize on a map, and you can say, hey, does anyone need me to come help witness their ballot?
Yeah.
That would be another good way to do that on your own.
Right. I think that's an important thing for that. Also, I so doing some digging and doing some research on tonight's subject. One of the things I did is I found basically voter registration deadlines and voter registration and voter deadlines for mail-in ballots. And this will be up on the website when we get a chance, and also be on the YouTube page as well. I think this is very important because it covers both. Most of them I have seen is you need to be there's some that's same day, but for the most part, it's within the longest I see, which is more common, is 30 days.
Wait,
There
what?
are, for registration of to register to vote.
Okay, the deadline for registration in North Carolina is October 9th.
Right.
However, we have early voting. So, if you're not registered by the 9th, you can register online now, or you can mail in a paper registration. If you are not registered by the 9th, from October 15th through the 31st, we have early voting, and you can register to vote at the same time at any early voting location. And the only kind of identification you need is like a utility bill or something that has your address on it, and you can walk in, register, and vote all at once.
And at that point, then you can do that. Or if, but we'll be putting those up about what's required to get registered to vote in your individual states for those individuals who are out of state and everything else that are not in North Carolina. I know we're being very North Carolina centric right now. Eh, that's because that's where we live. So I apologize, but we will be putting voting information up for all the states when you can. The last day you can register to vote in the individual states for deadlines, stuff like that, and as well as the rules of voting absentee in the individual states that you may live in. I think that's extremely important. Bless you. Oh, so we're also going to be doing a couple other things. There'll be some rules about voting, about your rights as a voter and what you need to do to protect yourself as a voter, especially, if there's voter intimidation. And I think you can speak onto this about more about things that you may have not witnessed per se, but things that you have heard and seen about as far as voter
Oh,
intimidation.
voter suppression and intimidation. I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. I've helped recruit lawyers to be able to rush over to certain polling places when there's something going on. It's Yes, it still exists. This is another reason to up and down the ballot elect Democrats. We've got that John Lewis named bill now to restore some voting rights. So, yeah, that's important. But the state parties also tend to have hotlines. I don't know all the hotline. I'll get the national hotline number, and I have the North Carolina voter protection numbers, so that people can, if they have any trouble voting, they call up, and the state parties tend to have, we organize a staff that is, they each have their own turf to take care of all through early voting and on election day, be able to answer your questions and stand up for you if something goes wrong at the polling place. But I have seen people in MAGA hats in 2016, for instance, standing outside a polling place at a primarily black precinct and asking, even because the voter ID law did not pass here, but they were standing outside pretending they were some kind of official and asking for ID. And just kind of getting people to leave. If they couldn't scare them one way, there'd be a guy in a suit asking for ID, and that it's all illegal. And that's why another thing you can do is, we're going to have very few observers out. Usually we have observers for this sort of thing, and this is why we need to be making more calls and texts than ever to make sure people have these hotline numbers, because normally we know where the problem precincts are, and we have somebody watching for this to, call in the cavalry. And we're not going to have all that in-person poll watching right now. You could go to your local board of elections and just volunteer to sit there all day and observe to be able to call foul when this goes on. And there's going to be there's a shortage of poll workers for that. There's a shortage of poll workers for the polls. The board of elections is seeking more help, and that's a paid position, by the way. If people want to do that, call your local board of elections, see if they need poll workers. It's usually a training that's a few hours, and then you work all election day, and you do get paid for that. That's the first thing I ever did. It's completely nonpartisan, and I learned more about our system then than almost any time since, from being on the ground. But yeah, and voter intimidation is still, unfortunately, out there. But there are hotlines, there are lawyers on call, and there are just volunteers helping protect your vote.
Why do okay, so when you were talking about people, you calling in the cavalry, why do I get the scene from like the original Godfather movie where like, Michael Corleone is called, his brother, and then a couple of minutes later, three cars show up full of gangsters or full of gangsters and lawyers all show up. It's like, no, you can't do that. I'm like,
No, because like that's more what those people look like that are out there trying to be sneaky and intimidate. But I mean, if you call in our cavalry, you get lawyers who, are usually local to the area, and they let the board of elections know what's going on. They let the chair know of your local party what's going on, and then they call over, and whoever's running your voting location, like the chief judge or one of the assistant judges, will
right,
walk out and see what's going on and ask them to leave.
right.
And if they don't leave, of course, there's the whole electioneering boundaries about trespassing, and they can call the police if it gets out of hand. But normally they leave once they get caught.
Because they don't want to go to jail, because that's, I guess, isn't that basically tampering with a voter, and that's also a federal offense?
Tampering with a voter?
Oh,
No, I
well,
mean, you can't get anywhere near their ballot because you're not going to be able to get into the polling place, so you can't really
right.
tamper with a vote that way. But I mean, if you accost someone, it's assault.
That's true. Well, what I meant is basically voter intimidation. I didn't know if there was
Oh, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the
yeah.
actual laws surrounding it. I just know they're really sneaky, and they try it every election I've been part of.
They've probably tried it every election that there's been an election.
I mean, there's so many ways they do it. If you get something in the mail, um, that looks like a ballot, it says, "Oh, here's your absentee ballot. If you didn't ask for that, throw that in the trash and just go take care of voting," because that's a tactic that's been used time and time again, and people think they voted,
Yeah.
and they
That-
target it. And right now, there's a lot of confusion in North Carolina because there are legitimate organizations that are sending out absentee ballot requests to try and get you to do that, but there has been voters being defrauded, and I want to be specific about that. It's not that the voters committed fraud, but we had voters being defrauded. We had some really crooked politicians in Charlotte and in a few other places who were helping people get their ballots and saying, "Oh, I'll pick it up and deliver it for you," or, "Oh, I'll witness for you." And they were changing ballots, they were throwing away ones from the other party, and all that kind of thing. And that's why Lord Dampnut undermining the confidence in the post office is certainly really meant to just sabotage a certain number of voters. Because you know what? When Democrats turn out, we win. There is actually just more of us. And those underhanded tactics have already undermined the confidence in voting. That is the way we could help get out the vote this pandemic with absentee. It's something more Republicans have always done successfully than Democrats. And now we need to use it, and people are afraid to. So that's why go ahead and call, your local party people, or just go straight to your own Board of Elections website and do your request on your own and put it in the mail yourself, and then you can be absolutely sure no one's tampering with it.
the other
It's secure. It's
right.
safe.
Now, I will say this: my day job, I get a lot of phone calls, and I deal with a lot of people who are older, that still deal with the mail a lot, and they are very upset with our Mango Mussolini, and they are like, you know what? I'm going to vote with the mail because I trust it more than I trust him. And so I'm getting a lot of that. and these are normally would be his voters. So I think there's a tide switch in a lot of ways. I don't think the polling's being honest. Now, here's the thing. This is one thing I want to be clear. The polls don't listen to them. If you think that this is all wrapped up and Biden's going to win, I don't care. Show up and vote anyways. That's what happened in 2016. That's one of the things that happened in 2016. Is just that the base wasn't excited, which is true, but also because there was a lot of people who thought, well, the polls say that there's no chance that Donald Trump is going to win. And the election was lost by so small of a margin because so few people went out and voted.
Well, yeah, the
Because
polls are reliant on shaky data because it's calling saying, are you going to vote for my candidate? And they say yes. And that's how pollsters can count. The only true vote is the people that actually show up and do it. So that's why I'm, jumped back into the fray and doing the work and helping people make a plan and get their commitment and calling them back. Did you vote yet? Did you vote yet? Did you vote yet? Because those we can count more accurately. And we have to earn them, every single one.
Right. And that's the thing that as a person, if you're listening to the sound of our voices and you are going to vote, make sure that you get one other person to vote.
Yes, bring a friend. I love to bring a friend.
bring a if you got a car big enough, bring several friends. I that was one of the things that I know was a voter suppression tactic when we had McCrory as a governor, is they cut down the number of early voting days, and a lot of churches would organize, especially in the African American community, would organize, and they would go get on a bus right after church, and they would all go to a voting poll right after church. They wouldn't tell them who to vote for, but they would get them on so that they all would have a way there and a way back home, so that they would, and I think that's extremely important.
I've done that.
Yeah.
I was working on Billy Kennedy for Congress years ago, running against Virginia Fox. We invested in a bunch of barbecue. We set up a tent in a park. A church lent us a van and drove people back and forth to vote. And those are the kind you can count. I've seen it backfire. The NAACP, for instance, is a technically nonpartisan organization. And even though the leadership were primarily Democrats, they got a bus and they started driving people, and it was a bunch of Republican voters. So I've seen that,
Yeah, it can backfire on our side, but on the same thing, most of the time, two things happen. Most of the time, Democrats are mostly early voters. That is so. That is the big thing. First off, second off is that we're mostly, like, if we are not early voters, we're absentee voters. That's where this whole suppression of the mail-in vote is coming into play. I am an exception to the rule because I like to be there. I'm just one of those weirdos that like to show up.
Actually, Daniel, historically, unless you're lumping in, because when you look up how people vote, all the early vote is like categorized as early/absentee. It's still technically an absentee vote.
Right. Okay.
So yes, more Democrats tended to turn out for early vote, but absentee ballots are usually predominantly requested by Republicans. This year is a completely different field for that. We have never had this many Democrats requesting absentee ballots.
Okay. All right. So I was wrong in my, but as far as the early voting is definitely leans more democratic on that side. So,
and so yeah, tactics like the absentee vote shams we've seen have been to undermine and intimidate Democrats, that it doesn't work, it didn't count, that sort of thing. And that's another reason we need to pay attention to our state legislatures, because they do things like control the Board of Elections, gets a majority based on the General Assembly, And then in turn they have done things like closed down early vote locations, make sure so there are few of them, close ones that are on campuses to try and undermine those more liberal voters. And this is another really good opportunity for us right now because of the pandemic. They are having to open more early vote locations, even though they don't like those because that's where Democrats vote.
Right. And that's been a fight, and it's not just our state. You hear about it all over. Ohio was big. Florida is huge. Florida has a lot of that issue where they'll close down, where in mostly Republican zones they have multiple poll stations, but Governor Scott was notorious for this. For Democratic zones, a lot of those would like have one or two poll stations, and it was hours of waiting. And people have jobs because it's the middle of the work week, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's where we come back to the whole idea of that that day should be a national holiday, where we should not have, where it's less likely people are going to work. But the problem with that is that if that happens, is that more people are voting. And that first quote that you read, that was from a Republican strategist who was part of the moral majority back in 1980, and that is still something that they still believe in. Is that the fewer people vote, the more chances are that a Republican is going to be in office. And it breeds
Early
true.
voting is really, really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I will always vote early because I am thrilled to have the opportunity. I like to see those numbers growing because for the working class, the more opportunities to vote is something we need to continue to encourage and protect.
Right.
Because I don't want to risk that. What if I get sick? What if I get in an accident? What if my kid falls down and I'm stuck in the ER and I can't go vote on election day? Why would I risk not being able to vote by limiting it to one day and one location when I have the opportunity for weeks to go to one of a handful of centrally located locations instead of I might end up in my precinct waiting in a line if I can go. I know people, it's like a ritual and they have to go on election day and that's what they want to do. It's really important to them. But you know what? If you really just feel the need to go to your precinct on election day, volunteer with your party because they're allowed to, the Republicans and the Democrats, to have be appointed by the Board of Elections and approved by your party to be able to go in throughout the day and just say, okay, how many people have voted? And then report the numbers back.
Right.
I've done that many years, and it allows me to check in with my precinct judges, and they know who I am because even though I've been early voting for years and years, I check in. They know who I am. I don't have to vote on that day because I could be driving other people to the polls. I could be multiplying. It's my last chance to multiply my vote by taking someone else that day. So,
No,
sorry, rant over. Had to.
no. I get it. I get it. And I'm the opposite, where if I can help, for me, I normally work on the weekends. So that is when early voting places are typically open. So I'm
No,
not
they're
able to.
open every day except like Sunday. From the 15th to the 31st, we have early voting, sweetie. It's not just weekends.
Okay.
Hours are longer typically on weekends, but
Okay. I still prefer to go on election day. That is me.
well, I hope you live that long. That's
Thanks. I know this has been a bad year, but do you really want to put that out in the ether right now with this year?
I just want to count it. Count the
I I
vote.
I understand. I get your point. It's a ritual with me. I get up early in the morning. I go to Bojangles. I get me 2 steak, egg, and cheese biscuits, a large order of fries, and a large unsweet iced tea. And I sit down and I have that, and then I go to my precinct, which is at a church, which is really stupid because I think that is ridiculous. And then afterwards, and I vote, and then I do my selfie with my I voted sticker because that is what we do. And then, and the rest of the day, I make phone calls and stuff like that. At that point, I make the phone calls and do everything else. But for me, it's one of those,
Ooh.
this is how I start my day.
I need to find someone with a Cricut machine, or maybe I'll buy some iron on transit transfer paper. I'm gonna make like a I voted mask. Where, like,
That
as
would
soon
be
as
great.
I mail in my absentee, I'll just wear that everywhere I go. Not that I'm
That'd
leaving my
be
house much. I'm working on the election 55 hours a week from home right now.
Yeah. But we'll also put up a link if you're interested in being a poll worker, or being not you won't but being a poll worker of some kind, or um, if you're interested in being someone who is observer for your particular party, the Democratic Party. You can always contact your local
Just
county
Google it.
party. Yeah, just Google that, but we'll put up the information for poll workers. Also, September has put the information about how to get set up to do the calling, phone banking, email, texting stuff, and I'll let her give that out for herself.
Well, there are an awful lot of ways to do this. I How's the best way? I mean, if you're here in North Carolina, go ahead and check out mobilize.us. We're using that. They've got texting and phone banks through that. Or just call the North Carolina Democratic Party. Call me. My number is 704-450-1177, and I will find your local organizer so you can make calls in your area if that's what's important to you. Otherwise, call the North Carolina State Democratic Party, and they will just put you in a phone bank, and you can call all over the state through the Mobilized platform. It's really easy to do from home. And we've got a really cool auto dial system and they're using these all over the country. In any state you're in, you're going to be able to find a way to make these calls. If you haven't gotten a text already and have a smartphone, I'd be surprised. I would recommend a party organization over some of the nonpartisan and PACs, just because it does help us count the votes more accurately. Having it all in one big database that we use. But I mean, I've got like the Carolina Federation. What's the other one that texted me the other day?
I got
Um, I've been stealing volunteers from these. Like, I had somebody from California texting me, but she wanted to be calling into North Carolina. We have an out of state director that will funnel you in, because if you're in California or New York, that you don't need to call every Democrat. Those states are going to be blue, and then they're going to get the electoral votes. If you want to have some impact, call into a swing state. So
right.
if you call the state parties in the swing states, they will hook you up so that they have out of state people who will funnel you in, so you can make
Uh,
real change.
I know in '04 I was working with MoveOn.org and doing their call in. They had something for that. '08, I think I was working with Daily Kos of all people. I think I was using
Mm-hmm.
their caller for that. So I mean
And
there,
one of the
but
really
yeah,
good ones we have right now is it's a it's an auto dialer. So you just call a number on your phone. So your phone number doesn't show up or anything. It funnels that. But also the machine calls ahead. So the call doesn't come through to you until it's actually a voter. So you're not just calling 50 numbers and talking maybe to one person. You will get just person after person for the most part. That's a fantastic modern tool we have.
and now do they also give you a script that you'll basically read off of?
Yep.
Okay. Um, and you want to stick fairly close to it, but I've worked customer service all my life, so I'm one of these people that I'm more comfortable on the phone than others. If you're not comfortable with the phone, stick with the script. I'm pretty sure there's reasons for the script. For me, whenever I do it, I would make it just a little more comfortable, but I wouldn't change it much. I would just make the words a little more comfortable as far as things are concerned. But for the most part, stick to the as far because they have it worded a certain way to be safe. So that is the one suggestion as someone who's done a lot of phone call work and stuff like that. When you work customer service, they tell you make it your own. But in these circumstances, because of guidelines as far as regulations and stuff, be careful about that. That is my one pro tip for the multiple times I've done calling in the past. So let's do this. We should be wrapping up. We're close to our time, and I'm sure September would like to go to bed. She's had a busy day today.
I am ridiculously exhausted. And for an example, like, and this is how elections work. I mean, they are unionized, so my hours are sequestered a certain amount, but I've got these floating hours. Like my shift was from 11:30 to 8:30 today, but
Right.
because as soon as locals who I used to work with found out I was on the camp, I started getting calls at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And it was like, I'm not going to wait 3 hours. Some of these people have to go to work to call them back. So it's going to be real easy for me to fit those floating hours in.
I will be busy from morning to night. My children and my husband will never see me again.
Oh, I want to give public kudos to my husband, Rob, though. He can't
Okay.
vote. He's still a Canadian citizen. But he has stepped up once again. He's done it in the past when I worked elections, from doing data entry, but being the support system. He made dinner today. He's brought me coffee. He brought me some water a little while ago. He and he's stuck the rest, like, on his birthday. His birthday's Thursday. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, online Zoom meeting open house calls for our son's high school classes. He's
Oh,
got to do all that without me. I have always done all of those things. At least he doesn't have to leave home to do it. But,
yeah.
like, he's not even going to know who any of these people are. But he's really stepping up and taking care of that because, I mean, he wants to change the world for our kids too. Like, he's like, brings me coffee in the morning. And it's like, okay, honey, good luck saving the world.
Now, does he still is he able to vote for in the Canadian elections?
No.
That's weird.
Well, he's a permanent resident alien of the United States.
Okay.
You have to have residency to vote.
Okay. So, all right. Well, that's strange. Okay. I figured
Well,
they
with the
did it.
parliamentary thing, that's
It's a little
very
different.
specifically different in having to be in a particular area because of the way they vote.
Right. Unlike now, let me ask this question. So those people who are like expats who vote, their votes, how does their votes count? Or is theirs only count in a primary?
No, they can
Or
vote
okay,
absentee.
but it's still from their state that they originated from.
They, yeah, generally have a residency of some sort.
Okay. Okay. All right. I was just curious. Sorry. Anyway, so before we get to our carrot and stick, Brother Bowie, will you lead us in a word of prayer?
Sorry, folks. We don't have any live
Yeah.
viewers today. So the governor is offering to pay to reopen closed polling places across the South.
So
Um,
this, I go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say you were talking about offering sticks, and it's like he's a Republican. I don't agree with a lot of his policies, but this, I'm giving kudos to a Republican about this. So go ahead.
Hmm.
So you go ahead and go through the story. So
Well, I mean, it's still unclear under whether anyone's going to take him up on this. There's a lot of this going on right now. I mean, he's really rich, so maybe somebody will take him up on it. I hope they do. I've seen other similar offers, actually. I want to give Old Navy a thumbs up in North Carolina. They are offering to fund and encourage their employees to work these polling places. There's a couple other local businesses and stuff, like, and big chains and rich people saying, I'll fund it, open another polling place for early voting. So I don't know whether any of this is going to happen. The Board of Elections has not yet updated the list of polling locations for early voting. I hope it does. Why not? I mean, why would we resist? I mean, part of the reason given for closing these places, even though when it's obviously because it's somewhere they don't want people voting.
Right.
Like they did in Boone.
Oh, yeah.
And NC State, like they do it at colleges all the time. They claim it's funding issues. So why not let that be in some way privately funded?
Right.
You'd think Republicans would love that idea, right? They're all about capitalism and not using your tax dollars for anything.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Actually, I can see there being an accountability issue if somebody's funding the polling place. Having that publicly funded does have good reasons.
It does.
This is just my opinion, not the opinion of the North Carolina Democratic Party.
Right. Well,
I probably should say that out loud.
Well, the other thing is that if he puts it into a fund that then he can't touch, it's like, okay, you're going to do this. Let me put this into this fund here. All right, my hands are off of it. I'm going to walk away. You take the funds and do with it to open up these polling stations. I think that would be the way to work it, so that he's not accountable. So he's not doing it but he's put the fund together and he's put it in, and then at that point the state is in control of that fund. Once he's he's put the money in, he's then given the control to the state and he's walked away. I think that would be the way to do that.
Well, it's interesting. I see in this article that he pretty much is saying very similar to what I just said. It's like, this is a serious question. Is closing polling stations about making it harder for minorities to vote, or is it because of budgets? If you say it's because of your budget, let's talk.
And he's very big on
talk to you.
Yeah, and he's very big about voting. He's very voting is very important to him. He grew up in Austria right after everything that went on with the Nazis and everything else, and so there was a lot of that, still that oppression and everything. And you've also got and then there was also the USSR that was breathing down their necks and everything. So he's very pro voting and very pro democracy. So he feels very strongly about it. So I think it's important. I think it's important to call him out on that, or give him basically give him kudos for saying, hey, let's talk about this. If this is what it really is, if it's about funding, we can have a discussion and I can see what we can definitely come up with.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a really good example of the American dream, right? He got rich and famous and then went into politics, and I am personally of a view that politics is public service.
Yeah, and people may disagree with, and I disagree with some of his policies for the state of California, but on the same thing, he's not a bad Republican. He's not, he sticks to his beliefs. He's very, and he's just very physically conservative, but on the same thing, he is also, he understands about the American dream and how important it is, and what it means. So I think that's, and as an immigrant, I think he's more understanding of immigrants than a lot of Republicans are. So I think that's also important to understand too.
Okay.
So before our stick, Sister Franklin, do you have anything to say about our stick? Again, we don't have a clip. This will be this right here. This very bit, flames, side of my face burning. For those who don't get the reference, go watch a movie called Clue. It's a wonderful movie. So I posted a thread. This is a thread from I don't know who this person is. He must be like a reverend or something, or claims to be a reverend or something. But this is what he says: God's justice is relentless, merit based. Jesus is the ultimate capitalist. Breathe, Daniel. Continue reading. He
Do you
would
need me to
rather.
read this for you? So you don't
Yeah.
just start screaming?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is Jacob Brunton. His self-description is Christian advocate for reason, individualism, and capitalism, co-founder for the New Christian Intellectual. So, yeah, he said, God's justice is relentlessly merit-based. Jesus is the ultimate capitalist, and he would rather see you burn in hell than give you what you need unless you confess that you don't deserve what you need from him. If you hate capitalism, you very likely will hate Christ. Wow, what? That is some holy horseshit. I can't fathom translating anything I read in any version of the Bible.
Easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to go to heaven. So
yeah, this is like an opposite. He lives in opposite world. He's in bizarro world.
I have found the stupidest thing on the internet, and here it is: Christian intellectualism, and then you post that. You have basically disproven that you are either. I'm just wow. I wonder if he is. Oh, he got blasted. It was funny. There were so many posts that were just blasting him with Bible verses after Bible verses.
Yeah,
and it just just like I'm just like, wow. The Old Testament, the New Testament. No, Jesus is not a capitalist. You're an idiot.
and he's saying to other people, like, you don't understand the difference between justice and grace. I think
Jesus.
All right.
Jesus is all about grace.
Somebody needs to.
No.
Thoughts and prayers, dude.
Thoughts and prayers. Yeah, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. So, yes. So, good luck.
Bless his heart. There we go.
Yeah. I wonder if he's from the South, because if he is, that is definitely one of those bless his heart moments.
Oh, but if he's not, he won't get it, and then it's more effective.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So this is the end of our last live show. This is also our 50th show. Can you believe it? September, we made it to 50.
Well, our last one till after the election.
Right. Oh, we'll be back. We'll be back after the election. Hopefully cheerful and in good places, and not, me in the middle of packing up as I'm planning on a boat trip to Sweden. So we'll see how this goes, but so between now and then, I wish you luck, and good luck on the job, and good luck on getting as many voters out there.
Thank you.
And with that, thank you for joining us on Heresy and Hearsay. I'm Reverend Barney. You can follow me on Twitter. You can also follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and any podcast catcher. We also have a website. Just Google us. Don't forget our Patreon page, where $2 a month can keep this show going.
I'm September, and you can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9of12, and hear me on the Geek Grills podcast. I will be doing that show Monday next, but Monday's my only day off, and that's going to also disappear soon. So we'll have some really great guest hosts. Jen might be returning, or the wonderful Jackie Hearn may be filling in for me on that show through the election. I recommend checking that out too on Twitter or at their website. So thanks for listening to everyone today, and bless your hearts.